Brutal Barracuda, a Sniper Elite channel.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be taking a look at 10 things that were once destined to be included in Sniper Elite 5, but for whatever reason were cut from the game. Be it time, budget, or maybe certain things just sounded better on paper and never really worked out how they wanted in practice. Now we know Sniper Elite 5 was developed during COVID and lots of people were working from home, and there's no doubt the pandemic played a big part in shaping the final product of Sniper Elite 5. I can imagine there were many things that Rebellion wanted to do with Sniper Elite 5, but for whatever reason they didn't happen. So I'm here today to tell you of 10 things that were very likely cut from the game. Now you really need to make sure you stick around until the end of the video, because we do have some juicy bits of information coming up that you are gonna want to know about. So let us get it on. So starting us off at number 10, and the only thing on this list that may not be cut content, I can't be certain, but I feel as though it probably, potentially, possibly could have been cut content, and that is the footprints. Now Sniper Elite 5 is the only Sniper Elite game where our favourite sniper leaves footprints on the ground. And I can't help but feel there was originally going to be a system whereby enemy soldiers who would spot footprints would then follow them, just like in Metal Gear Solid. If this was indeed Rebellion's original intention, I think it would be a fantastic addition to any stealth game.
Huh? Whose footprints are these?
Now I know not everybody likes to play stealthily, some players like to just run and gun, but stealth is certainly my favourite way to play the game. Having to worry about enemies seeing and following our footsteps would certainly give us something extra for us to have to worry about while sneaking through the levels. Or maybe it was added with the intention that the invader would be able to use them to track down Carl. Or maybe footprints were simply an aesthetic thing. All I know for sure is a system where the soldiers can follow our tracks like in Metal Gear Solid would be a cool feature. Next up, we have the one that everyone knows about and everyone's unhappy with, and that is the S-mines and trip mines that were originally going to be in the campaign.
During the 1930s, German engineers developed the classic self-contained anti-personnel mine. Called the shrapnel mine, or S-mine, it was a deadly adversary and became one of the definitive weapons of World War II.
But ultimately ended up only being in the PvP multiplayer. The campaign and even survival missed out on these traps. But how do we know they were ever destined for the campaign to begin with? Well, if we watch the reveal trailer, we can clearly see one exploding in Mission 2 Occupied Residence. The question is then, why were they removed? Well, I've tried my best but failed miserably to find the clip or the comment or whatever it was that I saw a couple of years ago, which was one of the devs saying they aren't in the campaign because, and this is the reason they gave, they didn't want to overwhelm or confuse the player with too many options, something along those lines, which if you ask me makes no sense at all. Are us gamers really that dumb that we can't handle one more item in our inventory? If that was truly the case, then why did they then add them to multiplayer? It makes no sense to me. If I had to guess as to why they were really removed, I would be inclined to say it's because the invader would have a very tough time spotting a trip mine. But then, why remove the S-mine? Well, that would also be pretty tough to spot, but much like the sticky grenade being a secondary function of the normal grenade, in Sniper Elite 5 the trip mine is a secondary function of the S-mine. So those two mines very much come as a package. When I think back to my memories of the original Sniper Elite, one thing that always stands out in my mind was the trip mine. I'd never seen a trip mine in the game before. I thought it was pretty unique, and it returned in Sniper Elite V2, Sniper Elite 3, Sniper Elite 4. It had become an iconic part of the Sniper Elite franchise, but the fact that it was removed from Sniper Elite 5 did kind of annoy me a little bit, and I think it annoyed a lot of people. I wasn't a big fan that they removed the well rod from Cole's starting loadout either. I still think that should have been his default sidearm like it has been since V2. But I'm rambling now, so let's just get on with more cut content. Next up, the Panzer III tank. Now this was the only tank to be featured in Sniper Elite 4, but was it ever destined to be in Sniper Elite 5? Well, technically it can be found in Sniper Elite 5. We can see a destroyed Panzer in rubble and ruin, we can see multiple Panzers on Conqueror, but was it ever going to be in the game as an enemy vehicle? And what proof is there? Well, the only evidence I have is this wallpaper that was found online that clearly show 3 Panzers driving about on Mission 2 Occupied Residence. Now it's not a lot to go on, I agree, but it does prove that Rebellion were at least thinking about it. One thing is certain, and that is it would have been very nice to have a bit more variation in the tank department. The only tanks we have to deal with in Sniper Elite 5 are the Tiger IIs, or the King Tigers as they're also known. Adding some real variation to the tanks like what we get in Sniper Elite 3 with its Panzer III, Panzer IV, Tiger tank, that would have been very welcome. It's now been 2 Sniper Elite games in a row where we only get one type of tank, so it's a shame really that the Panzer III didn't make it into the game alongside the Tiger II. Next up, hiding in trucks. Now, we already know this was a feature because again, Rebellion themselves showed it to us in the reveal trailer. Here we can clearly see Carl hiding in the back of a truck, using it to transport him around the map. Although this ended up being cut content, remnants of this system can still be found in the game. Mainly the various checkpoints that can be found around the maps that clearly show soldiers stopping trucks and searching them. But those aren't the only clues to this system. There are also documents in the game that hint at this ability. This document here, for example, is letting the player know that the checkpoints on this map won't stop your vehicle if a certain package is also on board. You will also often see trucks parked up that will drive off when you get close. More hints to this system can be found on Landing Force, where when approaching this truck, Carl says,
Truck. Might lead me somewhere interesting.
before it drives off up to the naval battery. This transport system might even explain why traffic was added to the game, to give Carl a constant supply of trucks to jump in. The question though is why was this cut from the game? And my guess would simply be because it would just make the game too easy. Just hide in a truck and bypass much of the mission. I mean, if the maps were double the size, then it might have been worth doing. I think whilst it would have been cool to jump in the trucks and have them transport us around the map, I think it was probably a good idea overall to cut this from the game. Maybe in Sniper Elite 6, if the maps are much bigger, then this feature might be worth revisiting. Now very quickly, I want to give a quick shout out to Core 2 Tom. If you're a Sniper Elite fan and you aren't subscribed to Core 2 Tom's YouTube channel, you need to head on over and hit the subscribe button. He has a much more in-depth video coming out soon discussing this very feature in more detail. He also has plenty of other fantastic Sniper Elite videos that are absolutely worth your time. I will leave a link to his YouTube channel in the description. Okay, next up we have the mystery of the 4 VIP flags found on Mission 5 Festung Guernsey. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you would have likely already spotted these flagpoles around the map, which we can tag, and that is pretty much all we can do. Well, they're actually linked to the VIP tour currently taking place on the island, in which 2 Japanese officers are being shown around by a German officer.
Well, this island sadly shares Britain's weather, but the tour shall make up for it. Onwards.
During the tour, they stop at the first VIP flag near Battery Mirus, and they get out and they have a little chat.
And here we are. Battery Mirus.
Then they get back in their vehicles and continue to the second VIP flag, where they get out and chat some more about the new battery currently under construction.
Now the second stop on our tour, the construction of our second Mirus battery.
They then get back in their vehicles, but instead of stopping at the third VIP flag at the communications bunker at Fort Hommet and the fourth VIP flag at Battery Dolman, they just drive past them both and head out the map. Now, I've always wondered what was the point of this, but if we head over to the third VIP flag and listen in on the officer there, we can hear him telling one of his men to just patrol the area until our guests arrive.
Nichts, was das Heben schwerer Dinge betrifft. Gehen Sie einfach auf Patrouille. Es muss alles sicher sein, wenn unsere Gäste eintreffen.
Then, if we head over to the fourth VIP flag at Battery Dolman and listen in, we can hear the officer there also talking about their guest arriving.
Jawohl, wir haben das Geschütz vorbereitet. Es kann abgefeuert werden, wenn Herr Meier mit dem Gast eintrifft.
And I'm pretty sure the final stop on the tour was most likely going to be a visit to the sub pen to check out the new prototype sub, as the officers there also mention their guest arriving.
Nun möchte ich Sie aber nicht weiter langweilen. Wir haben noch reichlich Zeit für Besprechungen, wenn Herr Nakamura eintrifft.
It was always odd to me that there was no objective, not even an objective to kill the VIPs. Battery Dolman can even be destroyed using a satchel charge, even though there is no reason to do it. So, what is going on here? Well, as it turns out, this Japanese VIP tour was originally going to be some kind of objective, which ends one way or another with you having to kill the target. When you tag the Japanese officer for the first time, this is the only thing that Carl says on the subject.
The VIP is an officer of the Japanese Imperial Navy. How far do Mahler's connections go?
But this sound file, located in the game's files, appears to continue this objective a little more. The clip you're about to hear, I imagine, was originally going to trigger if Carl alerts the Japanese officers to his presence.
Damn, the tour is falling back to a defense position. Time to stick to the basics. That officer needs to die.
And interestingly enough, once alerted, they will indeed retreat to a defence position, just like Carl said. Here you can see them at Battery Maris before heading all the way back to the cottage where the tour first started. Now they don't do this 100% of the time, but it appears that most of the time, if left alone, they will retreat back to the cottage. So clearly there was some kind of objective originally tied to this tour. Whatever it was we were supposed to be doing has clearly all gone tits up, and now it's time for plan B. We need to make sure the VIP dies. So the fact that we don't just have to get in and kill him makes this quite interesting. Maybe Carl was originally going to have to gather intel by getting to the 4 flags and eavesdropping on the conversations. Maybe a primary objective was going to be to kill the VIP, and a secondary objective to listen in on the conversations and gather the intel first. But for whatever reason, this objective was scrapped and the VIP tour cut short. Now it's a shame this objective was scrapped, because if we did indeed have to recover intel by eavesdropping on multiple conversations, that would have actually made this a unique objective within the game.
And Nakamura, behold, the mighty Battery Mirus.
Now, as to why this was cut, who knows? Maybe time was becoming an issue, or maybe they were having difficulties getting it to work right. The only other mission in the game that has you eavesdropping on a conversation is Spy Academy, when you're listening in on the officers' meeting. But even then you don't need to listen, you can just go loud, kill them all, and grab the document. Literally every objective in Sniper Elite 5 can be completed by just running around and shooting everything that moves, which is pretty bizarre for a stealth game when you think about it.
All the officers involved with the meeting are dead. Not exactly subtle.
I'd like to see some objectives that can be failed, but the mission still be completed, affecting your score at the end of the mission if you fail, but rewarding you for stealth gameplay if you completed the objective. Having certain objectives that can only be completed by stealth will incentivise people to play more stealthily, which I think should be the main focus of the overall gameplay in every Sniper Elite game. But one thing is for certain, and that is one way or another, this VIP had to die. Next up, the bridge on Rough Landing. Now, Rough Landing is a mission that I really enjoy. I like the map layout, and I like the new objectives of having to locate the shot down pilots.
Don't worry about me, it's the captain. Those Nazi bastards captured him.
But one thing that has always bugged me is this bridge is such a missed opportunity. It has no objectives or anything. But was something originally planned to take place here? Evidence found in the game certainly suggests there was originally going to be some sort of objective. But how do we know this? Well, after rescuing the pilot from the waterfall, he tells us that the Nazis are up to something on that bridge.
Hard to say for sure, but it looks like the Nazis are up to something on that bridge.
It even adds an intel marker to the map, which says the same thing. Reports indicate suspicious activity on the bridge. Then when you approach the bridge, Carl himself even mentions that something is going on.
The Germans are up to something on the rail bridge.
If you then listen in on a conversation an officer is having, you hear them discussing bombs on the bridge.
Eine falsche Bewegung und boom!
Before Carl says,
Nazis have rigged the bridge to blow. I should see if I can put a stop to them.
So originally there was an objective on the bridge to disarm bombs, but it ended up being cut. But why? Unfortunately, I do not know the reason, but it would have certainly improved the mission. I mentioned in my review of this DLC pack that disarming the bombs should have then triggered more units to arrive, kind of an ambush, because the Germans already knew there was a sniper in the area.
Were these an American snipers in the area? The best of the best, apparently.
So they knew Carl was coming, so why not set up an ambush for him and have tanks or snipers show up after defusing the bombs? That would have been awesome, having to fight your way off the bridge. That would have actually made this objective only the second objective in the game to trigger reinforcements upon completion, the first being when you collect the documents from Moller's office on Mission 2. But yeah, originally disarming the bombs on this bridge would have been an objective.
Explosives disarmed.
Next up, mortars. Now, mortars have appeared in the series before, back in Sniper Elite 3 when it was a scripted event that takes place at the start of the Save Churchill Part 3 mission, where we had to navigate past mortar bombardment.
Mortars! Gotta find cover!
But we also know they were once destined to make an appearance in Sniper Elite 5, thanks to a voice line that was left in the Conqueror DLC mission.
They have a mortar here. This is gonna be interesting.
But here in Sniper Elite 5, I think the mortars were more of an enemy type than a scripted event. Just like machine gun crews that can be found in the game that pack up their gun to move to a new location before setting it up again, I think we were going to have a similar crew in possession of a mortar.
Mortar crew. They'll be dangerous and loud.
Which I think would have been a great addition to the game if there was an enemy type raining down explosive bombardment from long range onto your position if you alerted the enemy, forcing you to relocate. But not only was there going to be a mortar crew enemy type for us to have to deal with, we were also going to be able to use the mortar ourselves, giving us a new weapon type to play around with.
Mortar. I can do some real damage with this.
So new enemy types is something that we didn't really get in Sniper Elite 5. In fact, we have less enemy types in Sniper Elite 5 than we did in Sniper Elite 4, with the removal of the spotters and the radio operators. I mean, I know spotters are in survival, but honestly, I'm not that interested in survival. I would have liked to have seen spotters in the campaign. So this would have been a new enemy type for us to have to deal with. It's just a shame they didn't make it into the final version. Next up are three things that I had absolutely no idea about until someone brought it to my attention. So first up we have Thermite, a new piece of equipment that was cut from the game. Possibly in the form of a charge similar to the satchel charge, or possibly in the form of a grenade. More specifically, an incendiary grenade.
Thermite, over here.
Incendiary grenades contain thermite, which is a chemical reaction that burns incredibly hot, reaching temperatures of up to 2,500 degrees Celsius or 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. It burns so hot it can melt and fuse metal together, rendering things like artillery absolutely useless. But what would have been its purpose in the game?
Alright then. Thermite will take care of this.
Well, maybe originally there were certain things that a satchel charge couldn't take care of, so thermite was needed. Or maybe thermite was going to be the stealthy equivalent of a satchel charge, seeing as thermite does not explode like a typical explosive would, allowing you to sabotage whilst keeping quiet. There were many types of grenades used during World War II, including incendiary, smoke, anti-tank, concussion, even grenades that could be fired from a rifle. But in Sniper Elite, all we have ever had is the basic frag grenade. I think some different types of grenade like the incendiary grenade would be a nice addition. I'd also love to see a Molotov cocktail weapon in the game. Setting enemies ablaze with Molotovs or absolutely melting them with some thermite is a kill cam I would love to see. Next up, and this is where things get a little bit crazy, we have the Focke-Wulf. Now for those that don't know, the Focke-Wulf was a German manufacturer of aircraft who produced many different types of planes. Now planes are not uncommon in Sniper Elite and are often there to provide Carl with plenty of sound mask opportunities. But what it seems as though we were going to get in Sniper Elite 5 is a plane that could actually attack Carl from the skies.
Focke-Wulf. Gotta keep out of sight. An air attack's not gonna be easy to deal with.
Now this is magnificent and completely unexpected. Now would it have been a separate plane to the planes that are already in the game? Or would the current planes in the game that provide us with sound masks also have been able to leave their scripted path and chase us and attack us if spotted?
Those people are trying to kill us! I know, Dad!
Well, considering the only planes in Sniper Elite 5 that provide sound masks are bizarrely limited to just one mission, which is Mission 3 Spy Academy, and the fact that those planes are Ju-87s, aka Stuka dive bombers, and not the Focke-Wulf, it seems as though we were going to be getting another type of aircraft in the game.
Focke-Wulf. Should keep low and behind cover.
But what type of aircraft? Well, we know it's a Focke-Wulf, so the most likely candidate would be the FW-190, which was a single-seater, single-engine German attack plane that was widely used by the Luftwaffe, and it appears as though it would have been able to spot Karl and attack him from the air.
A proven dogfighter, the robust Focke-Wulf was equally well suited for the ground attack role, with its complement of large-caliber guns, rapid-fire cannons, and bomb loads of up to 3,900 pounds.
It's interesting to ponder just how this would have worked. Would they just have been flying around the sky waiting to spot us? Or maybe they would only appear as reinforcements?
Focke-Wulf. Gotta keep low. Aerial warfare is not my specialty.
But more importantly, if the plane was able to kill us, would we have been able to destroy the plane? If the FW-190 was going to be providing sound masks as well as the threat of air attack, did we then have a decision to make? Do we take out the plane to make it safer for Karl, or do we stay hidden and let the plane go about its business, providing us with sound masks at the risk of being spotted? This would be similar to the Nebelwerfers on Sniper Elite 3, where do we take them out to complete the objective now, or do we wait and let them continue to provide us with sound masks? Or maybe these planes were going to work exactly like the planes currently in the game now, where they stick to their scripted path and cannot be destroyed, but with the added ability to spot you and shoot you if you don't stay hidden. Now, I've always thought that Sniper Elite 5 lacked somewhat in the sound mask department, and these planes being cut from the game could possibly explain some of that. All I know for sure is I certainly wish these planes ended up being included in the game. And the final thing that I have for you today is another thing I never expected to see in Sniper Elite, but it does sound great, and that is the Fallschirmjäger, aka paratroopers.
German paratroopers. It's bad news once they hit the ground.
Yes, there was going to be paratroopers actually dropping out of the sky and into the mission. Now this sounds glorious. I imagine it would have worked as some kind of reinforcements possibly, but we would have also been able to shoot the paratroopers out of the sky, which would have made for some fantastic sniping opportunities.
Fallschirmjäger, dropping into the field. Easy targets while they're airborne.
More evidence of this system can potentially be found in the Airborne Elite DLC pack trailer, where right here we can see Karl parachuting into the map. Now this was likely taken from the cut paratrooper content. Why would Rebellion go to all that trouble of designing and animating a parachute landing just for 2 seconds of this trailer? This leads me to believe that what you are seeing here is a remnant of the paratrooper system that was cut from the game.
Fallschirmjäger. That's not good. Better deal with them before they hit the ground.
But it does make me wonder. Attack planes and paratroopers falling from the sky. I feel as though a Grand Theft Auto style wanted system could be a good fit for Sniper Elite. The more noise and destruction you cause and the more times you're spotted, the higher up the wanted system you go. You reach 3 stars and maybe paratroopers start dropping in. You reach 4 stars, maybe attack planes start coming for you. Maybe an invader turns up when you reach a certain wanted level. I feel as though that would be much better than the current reinforcement system that we have in place at the moment, where a feeble truck of 4 soldiers shows up when you raise an alarm. Whoop-de-doo!
Yes, whoop-de-doo! Whoop-de-doo to the world!
Whoop-de-doo! Whoop-de-doo. That's nothing to worry about. But give us a wanted system where the army just keeps on coming the more noise you make. Send in the paratroopers, send in the attack planes, send in the panzers maybe. Sniper Elite is a stealth game, and I think we should be discouraged from going loud and shooting everything that moves. One thing is for certain, and that is the current reinforcement system could do with a major overhaul, and I think a GTA style wanted system is something Rebellion should at least consider for future Sniper Elite titles. Okay guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found it as fascinating to watch as I did to make. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you think to all this cut content. Are you glad this stuff was cut from the game, or do you wish certain things had made it into the final version? Be sure to let me know down below. And for those of you who have stuck around until the end of the video, I have a few bonus bits for you, courtesy of ArtStation. Now, for those that don't know, ArtStation is basically a website where artists can showcase their work. And in this particular case, we're going to be looking at Carla Lozano's work on Sniper Elite 5, who was a user interface, user experience designer and artist. Now, I do just want to mention that a lot of this stuff may well be concept work and mock-ups, so it's best to take it all with a pinch of salt. But there are certainly some things here worth checking out. So I'm going to go over some real quick, but I will leave a link in the description if you want to check out these images for yourself. First up is this post-match analysis screen, where we can see what appears to be post-match accolades, or maybe mission-specific challenges. Best Spy in the World, for example, is awarded for finding all pieces of intel for Guernsey objectives, which again could point towards my idea of having to eavesdrop on the VIP conversations to possibly gather intel. And then Lethal Sniper, which is awarded for killing every single Nazi, and making the Allies proud, of course. One thing that was really missed from Sniper Elite 5 were the mission challenges from Sniper Elite 4 that unlocked after you completed a mission for the first time. It really helped add to the replayability of Sniper Elite 4, and I really hope they make a return for Sniper Elite 6. Next, on this mission select screen right here, we can see 3 propaganda challenges on this particular mission, and I imagine on every mission. But what could they have been? Well, as it turns out, there are some cut audio lines found in the game's files that mention the propaganda challenges, and they are all variations on the same sentence.
Resistance pulled off something big here. Good for them.
So it sounds to me like each mission was going to have 3 events, if you like, per mission to discover. I imagine maybe a pile of burning Nazi corpses, or a destroyed supply truck, or something just to give the impression that the French resistance are out there risking it all to disrupt the Nazi invasion. Because we don't really see a huge amount of the French resistance in the game, so this could have been a way to make us feel as though the French resistance are in fact out there, we just don't get to see them in action. Next up, in this screenshot, we can see a compass at the top of the screen whilst using the binoculars. The same compass can also be seen in the cinematic trailer when Cole pulls his binoculars out. But, as we know, this never made it into the game. In this screenshot here, we can see that we were maybe once upon a time going to be able to see what percentage of players and friends have earned what medals. Here we can see the Guernsey map, and it looks like not only was the VIP tour cut from the mission, but so too was the entire bottom right of the map. Which is a shame, because just having another route around and up to the Myris battery would have improved this mission for me quite a bit, and I would have likely bumped it up in my mission rankings. And whilst we're on this screen, there are a few more things worth mentioning. First, if we look at the legend, we can once again see more references to the propaganda challenges. And secondly, if we look at the top left of the screen, we can see these arrows with planes either side. Likely something to do with the Focke-Wulf I mentioned earlier, possibly indicating that the attack planes were only in certain areas and not free to roam the whole map. I mean, no other vehicle is free to roam anywhere they want, so why would the planes be any different? And the final screen that I'm going to show you today, and one that will likely anger many people, is this perk for Carl, called Focus Movement. Now, if we read the description, we can see that it would have enabled crouch run when in focus mode. So it looks like we may have been very close to getting crouch run in Sniper Elite 5. Now, a lot of people were unhappy that the crouch run from Sniper Elite 4 didn't make it into Sniper Elite 5, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I loved crouch run in Sniper Elite 4, but I feel as though I am very much in the minority when I say I'm glad crouch run wasn't added to Sniper Elite 5. Not because I dislike crouch run, but it makes sense in Sniper Elite 4 because the crouch movement is just so painfully slow in that game. But in Sniper Elite 5, the crouch movement is so much faster than it is in Sniper Elite 4, so I feel as though it's not needed nearly as much as it was in that game. My biggest problem with Sniper Elite 5 is the difficulty. Compared to Sniper Elite 4, it's just way too easy. And I think if we are being completely honest, if Crouch Run was added to Sniper Elite 5, it would just make the game even easier. So personally, I'm glad it's not in Sniper Elite 5. Now, do I want to see Crouch Run in Sniper Elite 6? Well, it depends. I mean, I'm neither for nor against it. but it all depends on how Sniper Elite 6 turns out. One thing that I do know is that I'm glad this perk in particular didn't make it into the game. I already have issues with focus mode during invasion, and giving Carl focus mode whilst crouch running would have just compounded the problem. Now we know certain compromises were made to the campaign to accommodate invasion mode, and maybe crouch run was just another one. I know a lot of people really want to see crouch run return for Sniper Elite 6, and I'm right there with you, but I don't want it added just for the sake of adding it. Sniper Elite 4 needed it. Sniper Elite 5 did not. If Sniper Elite 6 needs it, then put it in. If it doesn't, leave it out. So, overall, it seems like a lot of stuff was potentially cut from Sniper Elite 5. And I think we start to get a much clearer picture of just how much disruption the pandemic caused during the development of Sniper Elite 5. But the good news is there should be no such problem with the development of Sniper Elite 6. So, much like any good sniper, now we wait. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. It really does help the channel to grow. This is a dedicated Sniper Elite channel, so hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date on all things Sniper Elite. And I will see you guys in the next video!
Brutal Barracuda, a Sniper Elite channel.